Hi, today I'm going to present my version of the 3 octave triads. Mastery of the major and minor triads is of course one of the most traditional building blocks of cello technique. Not including the first notes in the lower positions, my version uses just 2 fingering patterns for the major and minor triads. One pattern for the keys below G and the other pattern for keys G and above. This is a really good introduction to several Reese method principles. 2 points of pressure and the careful exchange between 2-point structures, using a 2-finger structure while raising the arm and bringing the thumb around to launch into thumb position, consistent lateral motion of the thumb while in thumb position, and synchronous motion throughout the hand and arm, among others. With your hand and arm centered over the C string, play the open C, and grab hold of the E with your 3rd finger and thumb. On the open G, adjust your arm and slide your thumb to the right. Lean forward toward 4th finger C. This structure can be formed either with 4 and thumb, since it was preceded by an open string, or 4-3, which will better facilitate the motion to the next tone. Do whichever feels more secure to you. Adjust your arm for the D string, grab hold of the E with a slightly backward grasp, then lean forward toward G, forming that note with 4-3. At this point, the thumb comes around to the front of the cello as the arm elevates in preparation for the shift into thumb position. Following a straight line forward and into the fingerboard, shift both your thumb to C and also your 1st finger to a note, approximately a B, on the A string. The thumb on the D string here is the sounding tone, but the 1st finger on the A string provides a 2nd point of pressure to balance the structure. Also, signals to your brain from the nerve endings in the tip of the 1st finger should help you to better gauge the shift. It should help with your accuracy. Remember, as you shift from 1st position G to thumb position C, the forearm should calmly move from a perpendicular orientation to the fingerboard to a diagonal one. Don't squeeze your muscles shut during this reorientation. For the following tone E, I lean forward, and the moment I place my 2nd finger into the string, I release my 1st finger on the A string to avoid a 3rd pressure point. This same thumb 2 structure works for the next tone as well, since the thumb is already over G on the A string. So leave the structure in place as you raise only your bow arm and sound the note. For the top note C, lean forward onto a structure comprised of 3rd finger on the A string and the already in place 2nd finger on the D string. As you do this, release the thumb, but don't lose that spot because you will be putting the thumb right back down momentarily. Now as you descend, release the 3rd finger as you simultaneously lean back onto thumb and 2. Remember that this structure works for the next tone as well, so now just move the bow over to the D string and play the E. Lean back slightly and place your 1st finger into the A string just as you release your 2nd finger. Play the C with your thumb. As you now return to 1st position G, play that note with a 4-3 structure. Here the arm calmly returns to a perpendicular orientation, then back onto 1 and thumb. Now forward onto C on the G string with 4-3, raising the arm and moving the thumb to the left. This 4th finger is ever so slightly, almost imperceptibly, higher up the fingerboard than G on the D string was. Open G. Reposition the arm for the C string, placing your 3rd finger with thumb on E. Approach this E with a slightly backward grasp, since you were just on your 4th finger. Open C. For the A minor triad, we employ the 2nd fingering pattern, which is for triads that begin on notes G and above. Beginning with 4th finger A on the C string, form either with 4 and thumb or 4-3, whichever you prefer. Adjust your arm and slide your thumb to the right for the G string as you grab hold of 1st finger C with a slightly backward grasp. Now lean forward and form E with 4-3 as your arm elevates and the thumb comes around to the front of the cello. Notice that the E is ever so slightly lower than A was on the C string. Shift your thumb up to A on the G string as the forearm calmly adopts a diagonal orientation to the fingerboard. Now let me explain the Reese notation fingering here. Above this note A, I place a red thumb symbol on top of a red first finger. In Reese notation, red fingerings and symbols are associated with the D string, black with the A string, green with the G string, and blue with the C string. But for the thumb in thumb position, which traditionally holds down two strings at once, I color that symbol in accordance with the higher of the two strings. So here, even though the sounding tone A is played on the G string, the thumb position symbol is colored red, not green, and it sits on top of a red first finger, which indicates that the sounding tone A is formed with thumb over both the D and G strings, with first finger placed on the D string just to provide structural stability, the second pressure point. Remember, in Reese notation, the sounding tone is always the uppermost of the stacked fingerings. As I now place my second finger, which is colored green, onto C on the G string, I simultaneously release first finger on the D string to avoid a third pressure point. The next tone E is sounded here with thumb on the D string. For this structure, I replace 2 on G with 1 on G for the second pressure point, since I will use this same thumb 1 structure after the shift up to A. Leaving my first finger in place on the G string, I lean forward slightly onto 2 on the D string to play the note C with 2-1. I use this structure to bring my thumb across to the A and D strings. This lateral motion of the thumb always occurs at this point in every triad that uses the second of the two fingering patterns. Now with my second finger still on the D string, I simultaneously release my first finger on the G string, lean back on my thumb, and sound the tone E on the A string. With my second finger still on the D string, I briefly release my thumb as I lean forward onto a 3-2 structure, sounding the top note A. For the descent, I release third finger as I lean back onto my thumb, and I trace an exact mirror image of the ascent all the way back down. Lastly, I want to highlight something about the major and minor triads beginning with F or F sharp on the C string. And this also applies to E major, which I start with fourth finger in half position. After the first F on the C string, which you can form with 4-3 or 4 thumb, whichever feels more stable to you, I readjust the hand and arm, leaning back slightly to form the A or A flat with 1 and thumb. For the next tone C, you might expect to form that structure with 4-3, since you just played a finger-thumb structure. But instead, I lean forward and play the C with 4 and thumb, carefully and precisely exchanging finger 1 for finger 4, while maintaining equalizing pressure with the thumb. This is because I want to play the next note, F or F sharp, with a 2-1 structure, which will allow me to release my thumb well before the shift to fourth position, where I will then form that note, A or A flat, with a 1 thumb structure. So to recap, in the upper positions there are just 2 triad fingering patterns. The first pattern for major and minor keys starting below G, and the other for G and above. Depending on the mode, major or minor, the fingers do make some slight adjustments for the different half steps. But other than that, the shifts, finger exchanges, and lateral thumb motions occur in exactly the same place every time, in every triad, in every key. Hopefully by learning this version of the triads, you will become more fluent with some important Reese method principles, allowing you to apply them freely and consistently to all of your repertoire, and also to become more confident overall with your left hand technique. Good luck, and thanks for watching.